Happy VA Wednesday. Today we're going to be talking about getting a VA loan and the pest inspection or termite report or wood destroying insect report. So basically it's the same thing, it just has different names based on what state you're in. So I'm going to refer to it as the termite report in this video, but just know depending on the state, the real estate agent may refer to it as a pest or a wood destroying insect report. Okay, so on VA, do you always need a termite report? No, not always. It depends on the state. Yes, and you can very easily go online and just Google, your state VA pest report ? And it will come up as to whether or not. There's actually some really great lists online. I have a sheet that if you guys want it, I'm happy to share with you that shares what states require a pest or termite and what states you don't need it. Now, there are a couple states where certain counties you do need a pest report. So it's a little bit tricky sometimes. I'm checking that list all the time, unless it's, California, Texas, Florida, yes, 100%. Everything else I am checking nonstop because there can be a little like, well, in this county, yes, but in this county, no. And then sometimes it's super surprising because states where I would think that you 100% need a termite report, you don't. So very important to know. And this is because, so many of you guys are PCSing. So it may be that in one state you didn't need it, but in the new state you're moving to, you do, or the other way around. So termite reports totally depends on the state whether or not it will be a requirement to your VA loan. That's number one. Number two, and this is the other thing that a lot of people don't recognize. Generally, it's assumed that the veteran or active duty member cannot pay for the pest or termite report. That is not accurate. There are 9 states where the veteran or service member can pay for the pest report. And I also have on my sheet what lists out those 9 states. So if someone's saying to you, oh yeah, you can pay for the pest, it's fine, and at your last house you didn't, and you're like, wait, what? It could be because you're in one of those 9 states where you as the buyer are allowed to pay for that report. Now, if you're in a state where you can't pay for that report and you're like, oh gosh, the seller's never going to pay for it. Well, your real estate agent could, their real estate agent could. It just can't be you. That's very important to note. So that's the big deal with pest reports. Yes, it may be a requirement based on what state you're in. Depending on what state you're in, you may be able to pay for it or someone else will need to pay for it. But the key is to not be dissuaded because of it. Now, something that I would definitely say is that if you're in a state, let's just use California for example. If you're in California and you're buying a house and you're like, okay, well, I really want to buy this wood-sided fixer. That's probably not going to go well on a termite, guys. So you want to make sure that when you're working with your real estate agent, a lot of them don't know VA and they don't know the intricacies. And it doesn't mean that they're a bad real estate agent. It just means they haven't hit it enough. There's certain markets in the country where VA is not a product they see a lot of. So it's kind of like a wild animal. So we just have to help them understand it. So if you're getting pushback from your agent, please call me so that I can chat with them and fill them in. But in terms of what we're looking for on that pest or termite, so in California, we have 2 different sections. We have Section 1 and Section 2. Section 1 would be like active infestations. Section 2 is stuff that could, over time, affect the quality of the house. Now, Section 1 has to be cleared, which means, look, if the house is infested with wood-boring beetles, that's a problem. Okay, if the house has $30,000 worth of dry rot damage, that's a problem. That would have to be fixed prior to close. Now, if you get the pest report back and it's like $1,000 in repairs and it's this or that, and you're like, oh my gosh, I really want this house. The seller's not going to pay for these repairs, but I need to clear the pest. You do have the ability to pay for those. So that's something not a lot of people know. A lot of people assume that, oh, well, it's VA, the seller has to pay for everything. Not necessarily. So if it was $30,000, would I ever be recommending that you guys pay that? Absolutely not. But if it's like $500, would I say, well, in this case, if you've got the money, it might be worth it? Of course. You just have to understand that if you're paying to repair a house before you own it, there is always the chance that you could end up not owning the house and you've lost that money. So that's something that I always talk to my clients about when we get these pest reports back. Most of the time, what I'm seeing is that when people are writing offers on homes with a VA loan, the real estate agents are already pretty aware of what the potential pest items are. In certain states, we see a lot of pest reports have already been done, even as part of the listing process, and that can be great. But it's not in every area. There's a lot of areas right now selling houses as is. So with my clients, I always recommend, guys, if you're walking through these houses and you see something where you're like, just call me, right? Because if you say, Jen, you know, the deck is completely rotted, I'm going to say that's going to come up on the pest, and that is going to be an issue. That could also come up on the appraisal as a health and safety issue if you're going to fall through. So always feel free to reach out. But the bottom line about this video is you may need a pest depending on what state you're in. More states than not do require it. And we do require that the pest is cleared prior to close. Not all of it, but the creepy crawlies. And it's important to know who has to pay for it or who can pay for it. Questions as comments, as always, I am licensed in 46 states. Please feel free to reach out.